I never dreamed of a lavish wedding. The idea of grand chandeliers, swans gliding across fountains, or choreographed TikTok dances never appealed to me. All I truly wanted was love, genuine, warm, and shared with those who had shaped me. I didn't crave applause, just presence, especially that of my parents. Not just their physical attendance, but their emotional presence too, the kind that says, "We see you. We're proud." Daniel proposed on a quiet afternoon at a nearby park, just a short walk from our apartment. It was modest, not flashy, but absolutely perfect. A simple question, an unguarded smile, and a love that spoke without needing to be loud. I said yes before he even finished asking. I had never felt more sure of anything in my life. When we began planning, we knew one thing. We didn't want a spectacle. No scripted moments, no forced grandeur. Just a serene lakeside gathering, soft music floating through the air, string lights dancing from the trees, and a ceremony that felt like a hug. Everything about it was meant to reflect who we were. We invited only 50 people, the ones who truly mattered. Naturally, the first call I made was to my parents. I wanted them to hear it from me before the invitation arrived. I remember pacing the living room with my phone pressed to my ear, heart racing with nervous excitement. My mom picked up. "Hi, Mom," I said, nearly breathless. "I have some news. Daniel and I are getting married in September. Just a small ceremony by the lake. We'd love to have you and Dad there." There was a pause, a beat too long. Then she exhaled, not in joy or even confusion, but with that tired, disapproving sigh that always found its mark. "A wedding now? Are you sure that's the best decision?" she asked. "And you're not even having it in a church?" I froze for a second. "No, we wanted something quiet and personal." She sighed again. "Honestly, sweetheart, it just sounds like a waste. All that effort, all that money, for what? You're already living together. What's really going to change?" I stayed at the floor. My voice dropped. "I'm not asking for anything extravagant," I said. "I just want you both to be there." That's when I heard my father's voice in the background. "Tell her we've got Tom and Eliza's anniversary in October. Can't be flying all over the place twice for family stuff." The words struck me like cold water. They were already committed to flying across the country for my brother's 5th wedding anniversary, but couldn't make time for my first wedding? I mumbled a goodbye and hung up, the silence that followed heavier than I expected. Daniel came into the room and saw the look on my face. He didn't ask anything. He just sat next to me, letting me lean into his shoulder. "They said it's a waste of time," I whispered. He kissed my forehead gently. "Then we'll make it a day they'll regret missing." I smiled through the sting, but the wound had already taken root. In the weeks that followed, I gave them every opportunity. I sent the invitation anyway. I called again to confirm the date. I even offered to cover their flight and hotel, anything to remove the obstacles. My mom's only response was a dismissive, "We'll see if we can fit it in." They never did. The wedding came, and it was everything we'd hoped for. The sky was brushed in soft shades of peach and gold. Daniel looked at me like I was the only one in the world. My dress wasn't designer, but it felt like it was stitched with magic. Our friends cried. His parents embraced me like one of their own. And yet, the 2 chairs we'd reserved for my mom and dad remained empty, silent symbols of a deeper absence. Sometimes people don't show up for you, not because you failed them, but because they never truly saw you in the light you deserved. Still, I tried to find peace. I sent them a thank you card. I mailed photos from the wedding. After our honeymoon, I even called to tell them how beautiful everything had been. They never answered. Then, a week later, I opened my phone, and there it was, a slideshow from my brother's anniversary celebration at a private beach resort. Champagne flutes, flower crowns, a cake with 5 years of perfection in gold icing. My parents in every shot, smiling, laughing, posing on a luxury suite balcony. The caption read, "Celebrating love, family, and 5 unforgettable years with our favorite couple. First class all the way." I stayed at the screen until it dimmed to black. They hadn't even called me on my wedding day. But here they were, flying first class, popping champagne, beaming with pride at another milestone in my brother's marriage. As if that were the royal event of the year. And mine? Just a waste of time. Something inside me shifted that day. Maybe something fractured. Or maybe, for the first time, something within me finally aligned. Because in that moment, I didn't just see them as parents who'd skipped my wedding. I saw them as people who had always expanded the space for my brother's brilliance while quietly asking me to dim my own. After seeing that slideshow, my parents lounging in luxury, raising glasses to someone else's love story, I didn't cry. Not right away. I just sat there, phone still in hand, heartbeat dulled like a distant drum lost beneath layers of wool. It wasn't only the celebration that hurt. It was the way joy flowed so effortlessly from them. Toward him. Joy they had withheld from me like it was something I hadn't quite earned. That night, I replayed the video clips from our wedding. Daniel tucking a loose strand of hair behind my ear. My best friend giving a teary, beautiful toast. The two of us dancing barefoot under string lights, laughter spilling like music into the breeze. And with each frame, I noticed something I hadn't before. I was radiant. Not because everything had gone perfectly, not because my parents were there, but because I had married someone who made me feel whole. Something my family never quite managed to do. Still, a piece of me couldn't let go. So I picked up my phone and called my brother. "Hey," I said casually, masking the 10 minutes I'd spent rehearsing. "Hey, sis," he replied. "Saw the wedding pics. Looked cozy. Congrats." Cozy. Like we'd grilled burgers in the backyard instead of vowing forever. "Thanks," I said. "I saw your anniversary photos too. Looked pricey." He chuckled. "Yeah, Eliza really went big this year. Mom and Dad flew first class and everything. Kinda wild, huh?" Not wild. I had stopped calling it wild. I was beginning to call it clarity. Did they ever mention why they didn't come to mine? I asked, letting the question land softly. He hesitated. Just a beat. But it was filled with something thick. Awkwardness. Maybe guilt. "Mom just felt like it was rushed," he said slowly. "Like you were doing it just to do it. No church. No big family invites. You didn't even include half the relatives." I swallowed hard. It went down like something sour. So, because it wasn't a production, it didn't matter. He paused again. "You know how they are. Tradition. Expectations. They just didn't understand it." And that was it. They didn't get it. Maybe they never would. My happiness came wrapped in something unfamiliar to them. So instead of trying to understand it, they decided it wasn't valid. But something inside me hardened. In the best way. I stopped waiting for their understanding. I stopped daydreaming about apologies and delayed affection. I started putting up boundaries. Not out of spite, but from a place of deep self-respect. Then, 6 months later, a message appeared that cracked open the past again. It was from my mother. "We'd like to invite you and Daniel to dinner soon. Your father feels bad about missing the wedding. We want to make it up to you." Make it up to me. Daniel saw the message before I did. He held my phone in his hand when it buzzed, read it silently, and passed it to me without a word. I stayed at the screen. A dinner. As if my wedding were a missed movie night they were now trying to reschedule. Still, I agreed. I needed closure. Or maybe I just needed to hear the words with my own ears. On the night of the dinner, I wore the same soft blue dress I'd worn to our reception. Something about it grounded me, reminded me of the joy I'd created on my own terms. The restaurant was upscale, clearly chosen to impress. My mother wore pearls. My father stood up when we arrived, like that one polite gesture might undo half a year of silence. They smiled too brightly, as if we were all just catching up after vacation. Small talk wobbled along. Starters came and went. I waited for it, the apology, the recognition, but it never arrived. Instead, halfway through dinner, my mother leaned in and said, "You know, Eliza's thinking of doing a vow renewal next summer. A big one. She was hoping you'd help plan it." My fork froze midway to my lips. "Sorry?" I asked. "She loved your wedding photos," she continued, cheerfully oblivious. Said you had a great eye. Thought you'd be perfect for something like this. It landed like a velvet-gloved slap. They hadn't invited me to be part of their joy. They wanted me to serve someone else's. I glanced across the table. My father was nodding, pleased. Daniel's jaw had tightened. And in that moment, I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. I set my fork down, gently but firmly. That's wonderful for Eliza, I said. But I won't be involved. And I'm done shrinking myself to earn affection that should have been freely given. I married the love of my life. You chose not to be there. That decision was yours. A dinner doesn't erase that. My mother looked stunned. My father opened his mouth to speak, but Daniel reached under the table and took my hand. I stood. You didn't have to understand our wedding, I said. You only had to be there. You chose not to be. I've made peace with that. But I won't keep letting you make me feel like I'm never enough. I'm done with that story. We walked out before dessert. The night air was crisp, and I felt lighter than I had in years. Daniel wrapped his arm around my shoulder, and I leaned in, not with sadness, but with resolve. I don't know if my parents will ever change. I don't know if they'll ever see me as anything other than the daughter who didn't follow the path they preferred. But I do know this. I chose love. Real, flawed, beautiful love. And for the first time, I chose me, even if they never will.